They say that trust is like a mirror. Once it's shattered, you can glue it back together, but you'll always see the cracks in the reflection. For 10 years, I looked into that mirror and saw a successful, modern family. I am the primary breadwinner, a woman who climbed the corporate ladder until I could provide a life of absolute comfort for my husband and our 2 beautiful daughters. I thought I was the one in control. I thought I was a protector. But a week ago, the mirror didn't just crack. It turned into dust. While I was in boardrooms negotiating contracts and securing our children's futures, my husband was sitting in our living room, methodically draining our life savings. He didn't lose it in a bad investment. He didn't lose it to a blackmailer. He spent $40,000, my salary, my overtime, my sacrifices, on a mobile video game. $40,000 in just 6 months. And the worst part? The money was only the beginning. Behind the digital gold and the virtual upgrades was a woman he called his queen, a stranger he whispered to while I was in the next room, exhausted from the weight of carrying our entire world on my shoulders. Tonight, I'm sitting in a house that feels like a crime scene, looking at a man who feels like a stranger, wondering if my self-respect is worth more than the family I've spent a decade trying to save. My name is Elena. At 41, I've achieved everything I was told would make me happy. I have the career, the house, and 2 daughters, 7 and 2, who are the light of my life. My husband, David, is 45. For the last several years, we've operated under an agreement. I would be the engine of our finances, and he would be the anchor at home. In the beginning, it seemed like a fair trade. David isn't the ambitious type. He's the guy everyone likes at a party. Charming, funny, and effortlessly relaxed. I thought his calmness would balance my intensity. I told myself that as long as the kids were happy and the house was standing, it didn't matter that I was the one working 50 hours a week. But slowly, almost invisibly, the balance started to shift. I noticed I was coming home from a high-pressure day only to find the sink full of dishes. I noticed that stay-at-home dad had slowly morphed into dad who stays at home while the kids play. To keep the peace, I did what so many women in my position do. I lowered my expectations. I hired a cleaning lady. I outsourced the laundry. I took on more of the mental load. Doctor's appointments, school forms, meal planning, just so David wouldn't feel overwhelmed. I told myself I was taking the bad with the good. I didn't realize I was actually subsidizing his checked-out lifestyle. The unraveling started on a Tuesday. I received a notification on our joint account, a small, recurring charge that seemed out of place. It was for a game called Last War. I didn't think much of it at first. Everyone has a hobby. But then I saw another, and another. That night, while David was asleep, a nagging instinct told me to check his phone. I've never been that wife. I've always valued our privacy. But the air in the house felt heavy with a secret I couldn't name. When I opened his messages, I didn't find a video game. I found a second life. He was part of an alliance in the game. And at the center of that alliance was a woman. The messages were devastating. He wasn't just playing a game. He was playing a role. To her, he was a powerful leader, a man of means, a warrior. He was telling her things about his day, his feelings, and his frustrations with his life. The life I was paying for. It was an emotional affair wrapped in the pixels of a mobile app. But then I opened the App Store history. I began to scroll. $99.99. $99.99. $49.99. The charges were constant. Some days there were 10 or 15 transactions. He was buying power-ups and digital currency to keep up his status in this virtual world, to stay relevant in her eyes. I sat on the edge of the tub in the dark, my hands shaking, as I added it up on my calculator. By the time I reached the 6-month mark, The total was $40,000. I felt a physical sickness in my stomach. That was our younger daughter's college fund. That was the safety net I had stayed up late into the night to build. He had siphoned it off a few $100s at a time, like a thief in the night. He didn't ask. He didn't warn me. He just took. When I confronted him the next morning, I expected him to break down, to beg for forgiveness, to explain some kind of temporary insanity. Instead, I got a version of David I had never seen, the defensive victim. He admitted to the online connection, but dismissed it as just talking. He said the money got away from him. He talked about the game's mechanics, how it pressures you to spend to stay competitive. He tried to make it sound like he was a victim of an algorithm, rather than a man who made a choice every single time he Face ID'd a payment. We started counseling 3 days later. In the quiet of the therapist's office, the truth started to bleed out. He felt small in our marriage because I was the one with the career. The game made him feel big. The woman in the game made him feel needed. I looked at him across the couch and felt a wave of coldness. He felt small? I was the one working myself to the bone so he could stay home with our children. I was the one who lowered every standard I had just to make him feel comfortable. And his response to feeling small was to steal $40,000 from his family to buy a fake sense of importance? I told him then and there, for this marriage to have even a 1% chance of survival, that money has to come back. Not because we will go hungry without it. I am fortunate enough to earn a good living, but because I cannot live with the knowledge that he stole my labor and threw it into a digital abyss. I told him he needed to get a job. Any job. He needed to feel the weight of what it takes to earn $40,000. Because David has no income and hasn't worked in years, his solution was to go to his parents. This is where the story took an even darker turn. David's parents are comfortable, and they've always adored him. To them, he can do no wrong. He told them a sanitized version of the truth. He told them he made some mistakes and needed help. When I spoke to them, I didn't sugarcoat it. I told them the exact amount. I told them about the other woman. I told them that David needed to pay this back to restore the balance of respect in our home. His parents offered a loan, but I stood my ground. A loan to a man with no job is just a gift with a different name. I told them that if they wanted to help their son, they should hold him accountable. The argument became explosive. I was angry, rightfully so, and I was forceful. I told them that the stability of our family was at stake. The next day, David told me that his parents felt I was blackmailing them, that I was using the kids as leverage to get their money. The unfairness of that label felt like a physical blow. I was the one who had been robbed, and now I was being painted as the villain because I demanded restitution. I realized in that moment that David's lack of ambition and his sense of entitlement didn't come from nowhere. They were cultivated in a home where he was never held responsible for his actions. I told him to tell his parents to keep their money. I don't want a cent from them. If the money doesn't come from his own sweat and his own effort, it doesn't count. So here I am. We are still in counseling, but the sessions feel like we're just moving furniture around in a house that's already burned down. David says he's looking for work, but I haven't seen a single resume. He says he wants to stay, but I don't know if he wants me or if he just wants the life I provide. I find myself looking at my daughters. My 7-year-old is smart, observant, and fierce. My 2-year-old is just beginning to see the world. What am I teaching them if I stay? Am I teaching them that a woman's role is to be a provider, a cleaner, a mother, and a martyr? Am I teaching them that it's okay for a man to fun and charm his way out of betrayal that would end any other relationship? I worry that if I forgive him, I will never be able to look at myself in the mirror with pride again. I worry that I will spend the next 20 years wondering if every time he picks up his phone, he's spending another $1,000 of our retirement. The question isn't whether I can survive this financially. I can. The question is whether I can survive this emotionally. I am a woman who has built everything from nothing. I know my value. And for the first time in 10 years, I'm starting to realize that the man sleeping in the room down the hall has no idea what I'm actually worth. They say the truth will set you free, but they never mention that it usually hurts like hell first. $40,000 is a high price to pay for a lesson, but maybe it's the price I had to pay to finally see my marriage for what it really was. If you were in my shoes, if you were the one holding everything together and found out your partner was secretly tearing it apart, would you stay for the sake of the kids? Or would you realize that the most important thing you can give your children is a mother who respects herself enough to walk away? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'm at a crossroads, and tonight, the city feels very quiet. My boyfriend wants to get married as soon as possible, and instead of feeling excited, I feel panic in my chest. Not because I don't love him, but because I'm terrified of what life would look like after the wedding. I'm 28 and my boyfriend is 26. We've been together for almost 5 years. Long enough that people assume marriage is the obvious next step. We've always had differences, but we've usually accepted them. I've been very open about my expectations, about responsibility, independence, and what I believe marriage actually requires. Recently, he told me he wants to get married as soon as possible. Everyone expects me to be happy, but instead, I'm lying awake at night wondering if I'm about to make a mistake I can't undo. One of my biggest worries is his independence or lack of it. I wake up early every morning for work. He wakes up late, not because he's on night shifts or has health issues, but because he says he simply can't wake up early. He works at his father's company, so his schedule bends around him. He says he's tried alarms. He says they don't work. To me, it feels less like inability and more like discipline. And I keep asking myself a question I can't shake. If he struggles to manage his own routine, how will he manage a household? Or children? Then there are the smaller things. Personal care. Grooming. He's clean. He showers. This isn't about hygiene. It's about postponing things unless there's a reason, like a trip or an event. I've told him I appreciate small efforts, like basic upkeep, not changing who he is, just showing consistency. What worries me isn't his beard. It's the pattern of putting personal responsibility on the back burner. Finances are where my anxiety really spikes. I've asked him to open his own bank account, to save independently. But all of his family's money sits in one shared account, controlled by his father. He says he can access money whenever he needs it, but that doesn't feel like independence. My income is more than double his. And when I imagine being married, I don't see two adults building something together. I see me planning and him depending. Housing doesn't help ease my fears. He says we'd live in his father's apartment, but there's no clear agreement, no guarantee, no long-term stability, just the assumption that it will work out. And suddenly I realize I'm being asked to commit my entire future to a structure that isn't mine, isn't secure, and isn't under our control. The hardest part is this. He is a good partner in many ways. He loves me deeply. He treats me kindly. He's emotionally present. And I know how rare it is to find someone who truly loves you. That's what makes this so painful. Because love alone doesn't wake you up on time. Love doesn't create financial clarity. Love doesn't automatically build stability. I'm not asking for perfection. I'm asking for partnership. And I keep wondering, am I overreacting? Or am I finally listening to the part of me that knows marriage doesn't fix gaps? It exposes them? Maybe asking these questions now doesn't mean I'm ungrateful. Maybe it means I'm being responsible. Sometimes love isn't about whether someone cares enough. It's about whether the life you're building together actually feels safe. My husband asked for a separation I never wanted, and somehow the more he pulls away, the more I feel myself falling apart. We're still living under the same roof, but emotionally he's already gone. I'm 24 years old. My husband is also 24. We've been together for 7 years, married with 2 children, a 5-year-old daughter and a 3-month-old baby boy. 2 weeks ago, he told me he wanted to separate. This wasn't mutual. This wasn't a discussion. It was a decision he made on his own. At first, I was angry, overwhelmed. I felt like I was drowning. But now that the shock has settled, something worse has taken its place. I miss him more than ever. Since the separation started, he's emotionally pulled away. No affectionate names. No physical touch. No comfort when he comes home. Every instinct in me wants to hug him, kiss him, feel close to the person who used to be my safe place. But he pushes me away. On one of my rare nights off from work, he chose to spend the evening elsewhere while I stayed home with our children. Later, he asked if I was working, and when I said yes, he suddenly seemed interested in spending time together. It was confusing and painful. I work 5 nights in a row. I barely sleep. I barely have time to think. And yet, he seems lighter, freer. He says he wants to stay married, just separated for a while, to find ourselves. When I suggested marriage counseling, he said no. That's when it really hit me. I'm fighting for something he's already stopped holding. The hardest part is learning how to exist next to someone you still love, while pretending your heart isn't breaking. I'm trying to hold myself together for my kids. I go through the motions, feed them, care for them, smile when I need to. But inside, I feel stuck, like I'm frozen in place while life keeps moving. Some days, the urge to escape the pain creeps in. Old habits whisper. I fight them quietly, reminding myself that my children need me present. I know therapy would help. I know I need support. But right now, survival mode is all I have. And the question that keeps looping in my mind is this. How do you emotionally detach from someone when you still love them and you're still sharing the same space? I'm starting to realize that detaching doesn't mean stopping love overnight. It means creating small boundaries where none exist. It means protecting my mental health, even when my heart resists. I can't control whether he comes back emotionally, but I can control how I show up for myself and my children. Maybe detachment isn't about becoming cold. Maybe it's about becoming stable, about choosing grounding over desperation, support over silence, and healing, even when the future is unclear. Sometimes the most painful separations aren't physical. They're emotional, and learning to let go while standing still can be the hardest part of all.